I've lived beside this lake for over 30 years. When I first bought the property, it was nothing more than an old cabin, a stretch of land, and a rickety little dock that I rebuilt myself the first summer I moved in. Back then, there was no HOA, no committees, and no one trying to tell you how to live your life. It was quiet, peaceful, the way a lakeside community ought to be. Then came the new development across the inlet. Modern houses, expensive SUVs, and of course the formation of an HOA. I wasn't part of it. My land wasn't included in the development, wasn't under their bylaws, and definitely wasn't subject to their opinions. But try telling them that, especially Karen. Karen was the self-appointed queen of lake uniformity, whatever that meant. She'd walk around with a clipboard like she was surveying a military base. She didn't like my gravel driveway, she didn't like my mailbox, and she really didn't like my dock. One Tuesday morning, I stepped outside with my coffee and saw her standing at the edge of my shoreline, hands on hips, staring at my dock like it had personally insulted her. "Morning, Karen," I said. She spun around. "Do you have a permit for this structure?" She demanded a permit. I laughed. "This dock has been here since the 60s. That doesn't matter," she snapped. "It doesn't match the HOA-approved dock design. It extends too far, and the color isn't allowed. You'll need to remove it immediately." I nearly spilled my coffee. "Karen," I reminded her gently, "I'm not part of your HOA. This shoreline isn't community property. It's mine." She pulled out a stack of papers from her clipboard. "Actually, it affects the sightline requirements of our HOA residents. Therefore, it falls under our purview. Sightline requirements." That was a new one. "Well," I said, "I think the county might disagree." She huffed and told me she'd be filing a complaint and returning with enforcement. I simply shrugged and said, "Go right ahead." 2 days later, got a formal-looking letter stuck to my door saying my dock was an unapproved marine structure, and that the HOA will pursue further action, if not removed, within 10 days. Instead of arguing, I made a call to the County Water and Land Management Office. The person who answered chuckled when I told him the situation. "They've been accusing people of that lately," he said. "We'll send someone out." 2 mornings later, a county surveyor named Dave pulled up in a white truck. A real old-school guy mustache, vest with pockets, tools hanging off him. Kind of man who looked like he'd measured half the county. He introduced himself, shook my hand, and said, "Heard you've got a dock causing trouble." "Oh, not to me," I said. "Just to a certain HOA." He laughed. "They're always trying to enforce things they don't own." We walked down to the shoreline where, right on schedule, Karen was already waiting. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, tapping her foot like she was the boss of the lake. "Finally," she said when Dave approached. "I'm glad the county is here to enforce proper regulations." Dave looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, I'm here to assess the structure." Nothing more. She launched right into a speech about sightlines, aesthetics, and maintaining lake community standards. Dave didn't respond. He just stepped onto my dock, pulled out his measuring tape, and took a few notes. After a few minutes, he turned to me. "Well," he said, "your dock is exactly where it's supposed to be. It's within the setback limits, it's compliant with length regulations, and it's grandfathered under pre-1985 marine structure laws." Karen blinked. "That can't be right. Sticks out further than all the others." Dave shook his head. "This is private shoreline. The HOA has no jurisdiction here." Her mouth fell open, but it affects our view. Dave actually laughed. Out loud. "Ma'am," he said, wiping his eyes, "a view is not a legal boundary. You can T-regulate someone else's property based on what you want to look at." She turned red. "But his color doesn't match our approved palette. We have a lakeside theme." Dave chuckled again. "He's not in your HOA. His dock could be bright purple with polka dots if he wanted, and you still couldn't enforce a thing." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Karen crossed her arms. "So what are you saying?" Dave handed her his official report. I'm saying his dock is 100% legal, historically grandfathered, properly registered, and none of your business." She stared at the paper like it was written in ancient Greek. Dave packed up his tools, shook my hand, and said, "If they bother you again, just give my office a call." As he walked back to his truck, Karen sputtered, "This isn't over." But it absolutely was, because later that week, the county sent her HOA a formal notice reminding them that they had no authority over non-member properties. They could not issue fines to exempt landowners. They were prohibited from interfering with private shoreline structures. The HOA had to retract the fine, the complaint, and every ridiculous claim they'd made. My dock? Still there, still sturdy, still mine. And every time I sit out there with my morning coffee, I smile because somewhere across the lake, Karen is staring at it, completely powerless. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more HOA karma.